Love letters don't usually come with invoices. But when you're 69 and desperate enough to believe a 35-year-old bar girl from Manila really sees something special in you, you learn that everything has a price, including the lies you tell yourself. Sometimes the most expensive education comes from the classroom of your own loneliness. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our long-time viewers, and he wanted his experience heard. I met Carmela on one of those video chat sites, the kind desperate men my age use when the loneliness gets too heavy to carry alone. She worked the night shift at a bar in Malate, but during the day she'd go online to talk to foreign men for money. $5 for 15 minutes of conversation. That's all it was supposed to be. Just a transaction. A few minutes of human connection to break up the endless silence of my Queen's apartment. She had this laugh that made me forget I was a 69-year-old widower sitting alone at 2 in the morning, staring at a computer screen because sleep wouldn't come anymore. "You're different from other men, Gerald," she'd say, tilting her head just right so the light from her window caught her eyes. "You have kind eyes, gentle eyes." Those words hit me harder than they should have. After Martha died 2 years ago, I'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone notice me at all, let alone see something good. The other men who chatted with girls like Carmela probably wanted one thing, but I found myself actually listening when she talked about her day, her dreams, the way the rain sounded on her roof. "Most men, they just want me to take off clothes," she told me during our third session. "But you ask about my feelings, about my life. Why you different?" I didn't know how to answer that. Maybe because I was too old and too tired to pretend. This was about anything but loneliness. "I have daughter," she said one afternoon, showing me a photo on her phone. A little girl with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile. Her name Mia. She 8 years old. Live with my mother in province because Manila too expensive for children. The way she looked at that photo, like it was the most precious thing in the world, made something shift inside my chest. Here was this young woman, trapped in a life she didn't choose, working nights in a bar, talking to strangers online during the day, all to support a child she couldn't even keep with her. "What you do before retirement, Gerald?" she asked me, and I found myself telling her about my job as an insurance adjuster, about Martha, about how empty the apartment felt without her voice filling the rooms. Carmela listened in a way I hadn't experienced in years, not just waiting for her turn to talk, but actually absorbing what I said. "For you must miss her very much," she said softly. "I can see in your eyes you have big love in your heart. That love no disappear when person gone. It just wait for new place to go." 3 weeks in, our conversations changed. Instead of ending, our paid sessions after 15 minutes, Carmela would stay on longer, talking about her life, her dreams, the customers at the bar who treated her like she wasn't human. "I don't do this forever, you know," she'd tell me, her voice soft and tired in a way that made me want to reach through the screen and hold her. "I want better life for my family. Maybe open small sari-sari store someday, be my own boss." She started calling me baby. The first time it slipped out naturally. "Good morning, baby," she said when she saw me come online. Then she caught herself. "Sorry, Gerald, I no mean to say that. You feel like family to me now." But I didn't want her to stop. After 2 years of being called nothing but my own name, having someone call me baby felt like sunshine after a long winter. She began sending me photos throughout her day, getting ready for work, eating breakfast at a small table by her window, playing with neighborhood kids in the narrow street outside her apartment. These weren't the staged photos she probably sent to other clients. These were real moments, glimpses into a life I was starting to care about more than my own. When she told me she was saving money to bring Mia to Manila for school, something inside me shifted permanently. Here was this young woman working so hard, sacrificing so much, and maybe I could help. Maybe for once in my retirement, I could matter to someone again. "Gerald, I need tell you something," she said on a rainy Tuesday morning in Manila, her time. She looked exhausted, still in her work clothes from the night before, her makeup smeared but still beautiful in a way that made my heart race like I was 20 again. I think I love you." The words hit me like a freight train, derailing every reasonable thought I had left. Here I was, paying to talk to this beautiful young woman, and she was telling me she loved me. I know is crazy, she continued, tears forming in her eyes. Old man like you, young girl like me, people say is impossible. But you make me feel safe, Gerald. You listen to me. You see me as person, not just body, not like other men who just want, you know. Her English broke, the way it did when she was emotional, and somehow that made the words feel more real, more honest. I felt something I hadn't felt in years, wanted, needed, loved for who I was instead of what I could provide. I love you too, Carmela, I heard myself saying, the words coming out before I could stop them. The smile that spread across her face made every lonely night since Martha's death seem worth it. This was why I'd survived the grief, the isolation, the feeling that my life was over. So I could find this moment, this connection, this second chance at love that I'd thought was impossible. Really, she whispered, touching the screen as if she could touch my face through it. You really love me. Not just say because you feel sorry for me. I wanted to reach through that computer and hold her, tell her that what I felt was as real as anything I'd ever experienced. I love you, Carmela. I don't know how it happened, but I do. The tears that rolled down her cheeks looked like the most beautiful thing I'd seen in years. After we said we loved each other, everything changed. The dynamic between us shifted from client and service provider to something that felt genuinely romantic. But real relationships have real problems, and Carmela's problems always seem to need money. I should have seen the pattern then, but love makes you blind to things you'd notice immediately in daylight. First, it was her daughter Mia getting sick. Hospital here very expensive for poor people, baby, Carmela explained, crying on camera as she showed me a medical bill written in Tagalog. Doctors say she needs special medicine. I no have enough money. I try borrow from friends, but everyone poor like me. The desperation in her voice cut right through me. I no want ask you for money, Gerald, but I no know what else to do. My baby. I sent $800 without thinking twice. It was money I could afford to send, and seeing the relief flood Carmela's face when I told her it was on the way felt better than any purchase I'd made in years. You saved my daughter's life, baby, she sobbed. How I ever repay you? You like angel sent from heaven. The gratitude in her voice made me feel like a hero for the first time since Martha died. Then her landlord threatened eviction. Another emergency, another desperate phone call. He say if I no pay by tomorrow, he throw me on street, she cried. I work double shift, but still not enough. Philippines very hard for single mother. Another $600. Then her mother needed medication for diabetes, $400 more. Each time I'd tell myself this was what people did for the ones they loved. This was investment in our future together. But late at night, staring at my bank account, balance dropping steadily, doubt would creep in like cold air through a cracked window. Was I being generous or was I being played? The questions would surface during those dark hours before dawn, when everything feels hopeless and every decision seems wrong. Then Carmela would message me good morning, call me baby, tell me she loved me, and the doubts would disappear like morning fog in sunlight. By month 4, we were making concrete plans. I'd visit Manila in 6 months, meet her family, see if this crazy thing between us could work in person. The possibility of touching her hand, holding her, seeing those eyes look at me with love in the same room instead of through a screen, it gave me something to live for again. Carmela seemed thrilled about the visit, sending me photos of places we'd go together, restaurants where she'd take me to eat real Filipino food. I show you real Philippines, baby. Not tourist places, my places, where real people live and eat and laugh. She painted pictures with her words of walking through Lunita Park together, riding jeepneys, visiting her mother in the province so I could meet Mia properly. But then the requests got bigger. She needed money to fix up her apartment before I came. I want everything perfect for you, Gerald. You deserve beautiful place when you visit. Right now is too poor, too ugly. It's a shame for you to see how I really live. Another $200. She needed new clothes for our dates, wanted to look pretty for me, worthy of a man who would travel across the world to see her. $500 more. Each time she'd cry and apologize, saying she hated asking for money, that it made her feel like a beggar. "I never want to be woman who ask man for money," she'd sob. "But I want everything perfect for us. I want you to be proud to walk with me, not embarrassed of poor girl from slums." The shame in her voice broke my heart. How could I let the woman I loved feel unworthy when I had the power to help her feel beautiful? The biggest financial hit came in month 5, and it nearly broke my bank account along with my spirit. Carmela's cousin was getting married, and as family she was expected to contribute significantly to the celebration. "In Philippines, family everything, baby," she explained, showing me photos of wedding preparations, lists of expenses written in neat handwriting. "If I no help, I bring shame to my mother. Everyone in barangay will know I no help family. I cannot live with that shame." The amount she needed was staggering, $3,500. For the first time in our relationship, I hesitated. "That's a lot of money, Carmela. More than I usually—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "How do you tell the woman you love that you're starting to question whether you're being used?" She broke down sobbing harder than I'd ever seen. "I understand if you cannot help. I thought maybe you love me enough. But I understand. You already help so much. I find another way. Maybe borrow from loan shark. Maybe work extra shifts." The guilt hit me like a physical blow. Here was the woman I loved, asking for help with something important to her family. And I was being selfish with money I barely even missed from my insurance settlement. "Of course I'll help," I said, watching her face transform from despair to gratitude. "I'm sorry I hesitated. I love you, and when you love someone, you help their family." I sent the money that same day, along with an extra $500 so she could buy something special for herself. The joy in her voice when she called to thank me made me feel like I'd made the right choice, even as my savings account balance dropped to levels that made me nervous. Something shifted after the wedding money, though I didn't want to acknowledge it at first. Carmela seemed different on our calls, distracted, always checking her phone, sometimes ending conversations abruptly when we were in the middle of talking about our future together. "Sorry, baby, customer come to bar," she'd say. But I could hear laughter in the background, male voices speaking English with American accents. When I asked about it, she'd get defensive in a way she never had before. "You think I lying to you? You think I cheating on you with customers?" The hurt in her voice made me feel guilty for even asking. "Gerald, I work in bar. I have to be nice to customers. That no mean I love them. You only man I love. Why you no trust me?" The conversations became shorter, less intimate. She stopped sending daily photos, stopped asking about my life in New York, stopped sharing the small details of her day that had made me feel connected to her world. When I mentioned booking my flight to Manila, she seemed nervous rather than excited. "Maybe wait a little bit more, Gerald. I want save more money, make everything more perfect for you." But something in her voice had changed, and the doubt that had been whispering in my head started shouting. It was a Friday night in Manila when everything began to unravel. I tried calling Carmela for our usual video chat, but she didn't answer. The ringing went on and on until it clicked over to voicemail. I tried again an hour later, nothing. This had never happened before in 7 months of regular contact. She always answered, always made time for me no matter what. By the 3rd hour, I was panicking. I sent message after message on WhatsApp, seeing them delivered but not read. My mind went to dark places. Was she hurt? In trouble? Had something happened to her daughter? The bar she worked at wasn't in the safest part of Manila. Maybe a customer had gotten violent. Maybe she was lying in a hospital somewhere with no way to contact me. I stayed up all night, checking my phone every few minutes, imagining every possible disaster that could have befallen the woman I loved. The silence felt ominous in a way that made my chest tight with anxiety. When dawn broke in New York, it was already evening in Manila, and still nothing. No calls, no messages, no explanation for the first time in months that Carmela had simply vanished. When she finally messaged me the next evening, her explanation was simple. "Phone broken, baby. Sorry you worry. Everything okay now." But something felt fundamentally wrong. The way she typed, the words she chose, the casual tone after disappearing for over 24 hours, It didn't sound like my Carmela. It sounded like someone going through the motions, like someone who had stopped caring whether I believed her or not. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, so I did something I'd never done before, something that felt like violating her privacy, but I had to know. I took one of the personal photos she'd sent me, one of her eating breakfast by her window, and reverse searched it on Google. My hands were shaking as the results loaded, hoping I wouldn't find anything, hoping my paranoia was just the product of a lonely old man's insecurity. There she was, my Carmela, but her name was listed as Lovely on an escort website based in Manila. The same photos she'd sent me as personal, intimate moments were being used to advertise her services to foreign men. The profile described her as available for companionship and girlfriend experience sessions. My heart stopped beating for what felt like a full minute. I clicked deeper, my world crumbling with each new tab I opened. Carmela had profiles on multiple dating sites, all with different names: Rose, Angel, Precious, Destiny. Each profile told a similar story: single mother, working to support family, looking for serious relationship with foreign man. The photos were all ones she'd sent to me, ones I'd thought were meant only for my eyes. The realization hit me like a physical blow to the chest. I wasn't special. I wasn't different. I wasn't the one foreign man who had touched her heart in a way no other man could. I was just another lonely foreign man, being worked by a professional who knew exactly which words to say, exactly which vulnerable spots to touch, exactly how to make a fool feel loved. When I confronted Carmela with what I'd found, she didn't deny it. There was no shock, no shame, no desperate attempt to explain it away. "Yes, I work many men, Gerald," she said calmly, her voice harder than I'd ever heard it. "But with you is different. With you is real." Even caught in her lie, she was still trying to manipulate me, still reaching for the strings she'd been pulling for 7 months. "You think I no feel anything for you? You think all fake?" Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to think that maybe I really was special, that maybe she really did love me despite everything. But the evidence was overwhelming, and I'd been in the insurance business too long not to recognize a pattern when I saw one. The timing of her emergencies perfectly coincided with other men's payday schedules based on comments I found on the escort site. The cousin's wedding had been mentioned on her profiles as a reason she needed money from multiple clients. Even her daughter's name was different on different sites, sometimes Mia, sometimes Maria, sometimes Angela. The sick child story, the eviction threat, the family emergencies, they were all part of a script refined over months or years of working foreign men. That night, I sat down with a calculator and added up exactly how much I'd sent Carmela over 7 months. The number was devastating: $27,000. $27,000 of my retirement savings gone. Money that was supposed to last me the rest of my life, handed over to someone who saw me as nothing more than a paycheck with emotions attached. I thought about Martha, about how hard we'd worked to save that money, how carefully we'd planned for my retirement. We'd skipped vacations, driven old cars, eaten at home instead of restaurants, all so I'd have enough to live comfortably after I stopped working. I'd thrown it all away chasing a fantasy, believing that a beautiful young woman could actually love a man like me. The shame was unbearable. Not just the financial loss, though, that was bad enough. The emotional humiliation of realizing I'd been played so completely, so expertly, by someone young enough to be my daughter. I'd fallen for every trick, believed every lie, sent money for every fake emergency, because I was so desperate to be loved that I'd ignored every red flag that would have been obvious to anyone thinking clearly. Our last video call was brutal, in its honesty. I needed to hear her say it, needed to understand how someone could fake love so convincingly for so long. "You want truth, Gerald?" Carmela said, her voice hard in a way I'd never heard before, all pretense of sweetness stripped away. "Truth is, you old man who pay for company because no woman your age want you. Truth is, I good at my job, make you feel special because that what you pay for." Her words cut deep because they were partially true. I had been lonely, desperate, willing to believe anything that made me feel wanted again. But you want more than what you buy, so you get hurt. That not my fault. That your fault for believing fairy tale. The cruelty in her voice was stunning, after months of gentle words and declarations of love. But what hurt most was realizing that somewhere along the way I'd forgotten my own worth. I'd reduced myself to nothing more than a credit card with feelings, a solution to someone else's problems. I'd become so convinced that I was unlovable that I'd paid someone to love me. And even then, I couldn't keep her interested enough to maintain the pretense. The months after were the hardest of my life. The financial loss was devastating, but the emotional damage was worse. I'd have to go back to work part-time just to make ends meet, taking a job at a big box store greeting customers. My retirement dreams evaporating along with my savings. At 69, I was starting over financially because I'd been stupid enough to fall for the oldest trick in the book. Friends and family couldn't understand how I'd been so foolish, and I couldn't explain it without sounding like exactly what. I was a lonely old man who'd been scammed by a woman young enough to be his granddaughter. The shame followed me everywhere. Every time I saw a young couple, every time I heard someone laugh at a romance movie, I was reminded of my stupidity. I deleted all the apps, blocked all the numbers, but the damage was done. Trust in others and in myself was gone. How do you learn to believe in love again when you've been fooled so completely? How do you trust your own judgment when it led you so far astray? The woman at the grocery store who smiled at me, the neighbor who said hello, were they being genuine, or did they see the same desperation in my eyes that Carmela had exploited? The worst part was the isolation. I couldn't tell anyone what had really happened without exposing myself as a fool, so I carried the shame alone, the way I'd carried everything else since Martha died. The loneliness that had driven me to those video chat sites in the first place came back doubled, because now I knew that even paid companionship was a lie I couldn't afford to believe. If I could go back and talk to the man I was 7 months ago, I'd tell him that loneliness isn't a problem you can solve by throwing money at it. I'd tell him that real love doesn't come with a price tag and emergency requests. I'd tell him that Martha wouldn't have wanted this for me, wouldn't have wanted me to dishonor our life together by desperately grasping at fantasy. The hardest truth I've learned is that some mistakes can't be undone. That money is gone forever, and no amount of regret will bring it back. But more importantly, a part of me is gone too. The part that believed I deserved love, that believed I had something valuable to offer beyond my bank account balance. Carmela didn't just take my money. She took my ability to trust my own judgment about people, about love, about my own worth. Maybe that's the real price of desperation. Not just what you lose, but what you stop believing about yourself. I'm still learning how to live with that loss, how to build something resembling self-respect from the ruins of my retirement and my pride. Some days are better than others, but I wanted to share this story because I know I'm not the only lonely man who's been down this road, and maybe hearing about the real cost will save someone else from paying it.